Hello everyone. Hello. So we can start our lecture. If you have any question regarding the last week, we can start from there. So any question, if you have any confusion about databases, any basic question about database, you can ask, no problem. Yeah.
I don't have any question related to database. I just have one question about assignment.
Okay.
You posted something in Blackboard.
Okay.
It's the 4th of October, which is Monday.
Yeah, we will discuss the project proposal, right? Yeah, it's about project proposal. And I hope all of you have been assigned to some group, right? Is anyone still not in any group, project group? You? Okay. So yeah, we can discuss after this class. So one group has space, so we can, okay. So no other question? Okay. So basically, we would start with small demonstration of one software, which is known as Oracle SQL Developer Data Modeler. Basically, this is a tool to represent or make or visualize your ERDs. Okay. Who will tell what are the 3 steps to make database application? What are the 3 stages or 3 steps? Can anyone tell? It starts from logical modeling. Then we have second step. What is that? Sorry? Design, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So technically, first step is conceptual modeling, in which we would be drawing some diagram of our system through ERDs, right? For last 1-2 weeks, we are discussing this thing. This is conceptual modeling. And from where you take in, what is the input of conceptual modeling? Business requirements. Business rules are the required, right? So, for example, if you are going to make some management information system for some hotel or some other business, they will tell you what are the business requirements, what are the business rules, okay? So might be you have to make some payroll system in which you have to manage your employees, their salaries, might be their attendance sort of thing, right? So this would come from business requirements. So from business requirements or from business rules, you have to make a conceptual model, okay? And for conceptual modeling, you can use different diagrams. One of the famous diagram that is commonly used in industry and obviously in most of the books you can read is ERD, entity relationship diagram, right? In last 2 weeks, we were discussing about ERDs, how to make ERDs. We have to identify important entities of the database. And we call database as a mini world, some sort of related entities, right? In which we have entities, their attributes, and their relationships with each other, right? So this will make a database. And in database, obviously, after conceptual modeling, we have to do logical modeling, and then we have to do physical modeling or physical implementation of that database in DBMS, database management system. So we discussed this thing in very detail, what is the role or what is the characteristics of DBMS, right? And but this tool, this is a free tool in which you can model your data. It's very easy to use. I will show you how you can use it. You can install on Windows, Mac, and even Linux version is there, and so you can draw conceptual model there, and with few clicks, and then you can go to the logical model, and even then you can generate physical model as well. So it's very useful tool, especially because you have very drag and drop options. Because once you have very complex system, it may contain 20 or 30 or 40 entities, right? In real life, it wouldn't be 2, 3 or 4 entities only. I told you, like Amazon's ERD, like if you can print that ERD, it would take more than 200 A4 size pages. So obviously, no one could draw 200 pages and remember all the relationships and all the attributes sort of thing. So you need a tool, and there are multiple tools available, but this tool is very easy to use, and so for this course we can use this tool. But obviously this tool is not a requirement. If you can draw your ERD on page for your projects or assignments, that's fine, because in the exam you wouldn't have to demonstrate on this tool. But it's very, very easy. And obviously when it's a software, so you can easily manage, you can easily add new attributes of entity or remove relationships, right? So good tutorial is there, you can go through that tutorial as well. And for example, we have this ERD, very basic one, in which how many entities we have? How many entities in this ERD? Actually, lights are so bright that even it's very difficult to see you people. So yeah. Anyway, so basically there are two entities only, right? Employee entity and department entity, right? And we have one relationship between employee and department, and another. Can you imagine there could be another type of relationship between department and employee? Can you think what could be the other relationship that is possible to draw between employee and department? Because there is no compulsion or there is no restriction that there would be only one relationship between two entities. There could be multiple type of relationships, okay? So another one could be, sorry? Yeah, no, entity, another relationship between employee and department. Obviously, this department would be managed by some employee, right? For example, for some particular department, there would be some HOD, right? Head of department or manager. So it means that this department is also controlled by or managed by an employee. And for the time being, this type of relationship is not here in this diagram, right? So might be we can add another relationship with employee to department, and most probably it would be one-to-one relationship, right? So simply each employee may control one and only one department, another relationship, right? Just part, or other relationships could be, might be there is another entity project, right? There are so many projects under one department, and these projects would be, obviously there would be many employees that would be running that project. So it all depends on the system that we are going to build, okay? If we are not managing, if we are not trying to save values or store data about projects, obviously then it wouldn't come here. But in real scenario, you know that under department, we have different projects, and obviously each employee may belong to one or more projects, right? So we can draw this sort of thing, this simple ERD in Oracle data modeler. And the good thing about that tool is that, like, if you design very good in that tool, then next steps are very, very easy. You only have to click few things or add things, and it will generate automatically your SQL for you. Okay, for DDL type of SQL. DDL type of SQL is just like how to create tables in the database schema. Okay, so first step is ERD. If you can make good ERD, and even on the tool you can collaborate with each other. You can share your files in PDF or HTML files or JPEG files, or even there is versioning as well. You can share on GitHub, right? And multiple teams can collaborate on one project. And then once conceptual model is finalized, then you can simply generate the next step by only clicking 2 or 3 clicks, right? And then you have to add data types, and then you can simply generate SQL for creating actual tables in DBMS. And then you can copy that SQL code that would be generated by this tool to your DBMS and just run it, and then tables would be created automatically. So that's why this tool is very helpful, right? You don't have to write all code. And obviously, if I have 20, 30 entities, I cannot write each and every line for coding sort of thing. So this tool is very helpful, right? So I can show you a small introduction of this tool, and then it's up to you. You can use for your assignments, you can use it for your. So, and installation is also very simple. You only have to download for Windows or according to your operating system, and then simple few clicks, and then you can download. Okay. So here first step is logical modeling, right? Okay. In bookish form or in slides we were saying that conceptual model, but it's fine, right? So first of all, obviously we have to create some entities, right? So I can simply say here I will add one entity named as employee. Okay, and for the timing that's fine. I can add attributes. So if I want to copy this thing exactly, there is employee entity, then number attribute, first name, last name, hire date. So okay, I would say number. Okay, then first name, and obviously for number you can say that this is primary UID, unique identifier, right? And obviously it would be automatically mandatory. Then first name for employee, obviously it's not primary key, but it's mandatory attribute. Then I can add some other last name, let's say mandatory. So first name, last name, hire date. Okay, I'm just adding job, one attribute which is optional. So I would say I wouldn't add something. Obviously it's not mandatory. So by this way you have created one entity. I can zoom. Okay. So you can see, similarly you can create another entity, department, and you can create relationship between two entities. So let's create another entity here. Department, right? And department has only one attribute, which is mandatory number, and it is also primary key. But let's say add another attribute named as name, right? And it's not mandatory, optional. So now we have two entities, right? So double click, you can simply add minus attributes, you can edit any entity. So that's why it's very easy to manage instead of writing on pages and then you have to remove, right? Then we can create relationships. So we have M2N, which is many to many relationship, but we discussed this thing, the relationship between employee and department is one to many, right? Each employee must be assigned to one and only one department. And similarly, if we go from this way, each department may be responsible for one or more employees, right? So it's not M2N relationship, it's one to N relationship. So I will click here and then second entity, on second entity. Then relationship name could be works in. So here I have to tell that, okay, so works in source to target cardinality. Employee entity is source here. So this is one. But target to source cardinality is many, right? Because in each department there would be many employees. And we can mention that they are transferable relationship or not. We discussed this thing. Who will tell which relationship is non-transferable? Non-transferable relationship. Sorry? One to one? Okay, someone else? Non-transferable relationship.
The line.
Sorry?
The line, straight line, or dash line.
Okay. Okay. What else? Any example? For example, relationship between student and let's say his or her PPS card number, right? Or some sort of thing, receipt of payment, something, right? Or bus card, right? So this sort of relationship is non-transferable because you cannot, once it's been issued, right? Then obviously it cannot be reissued to someone else, right? So this sort of relationship is non-transferable. But in general, most of the relationships are transferable. Even employees can be transferred to some other departments of the same institution or same business, right? But if there is a business rule that if you have been hired by business school, then you cannot be hired by any other school, then it means that relationship between employee and department is non-transferable, right? So they are transferable, let's say. Otherwise, there would be small diamond here, okay? Or might be, if we can see. So if it's non, and this source optionality is maybe and must be thing, okay? We discussed this thing that each employee may be optional, maybe or must be. In this diagram, solid line means must be, right? So if we are drawing the same thing, then this source optional is this. We have to uncheck this thing. This is must, right? But this could be optional. Each department may have one or more employees. So you can see diamond is here for transferable, non-transferable thing, and now relationship from employee to department is must. It's not optional. Each employee must be assigned to some department. Okay, and but you can create a new department and then you can hire new staff after that. So that's why it's optional. So this tool is very easy to use. Like even representing ERD, there are so many formats, there are so many standards, and obviously different companies use different standards. And the good thing is that like you can even change your standards according to the company need, right? This one is, I think, Baker. So yeah, logical diagram notation, Barker, okay, Beckman notation. So simply you can change it to this way if the company like this way. So obviously you have to write different things later on, but so you can easily convert to different notations. Okay. So any question about this tool? Once this is ready, then obviously we have to provide very few things, few information for the next step, and then we can create relational model. And after relational model, we can simply create a physical DDL data description language, right? In which we can use that SQL code to create these tables physically in some DBMS, okay? And all the code would be generated automatically by this tool. Otherwise, you can write, it's very easy, and we will learn in this course. But 90% of the work can be done by this tool, and it's very easy to use. You can add more attributes, you can add more entities. Even if I can click here, and I can show you, even you can add some sort of super types as well, right? And another thing is, yeah, for relationship, recursive relationship is also possible. Okay. So good tutorial about this tool is there. So from this link you can easily get more idea. And over the weekend I would try to make another short video only about this tool by taking some example and mapping paper ERD into this tool easily, so that it would be 5-10 minute tutorial. So you can watch that video as well. Any question? Okay. So in the last lecture we discussed super types, right? So in many cases we have entities which are kind of one super entity, right? We discussed this thing. For example, for payment purposes, I can use cash payment, I can use debit, credit cards, or I can pay through check, right? So obviously, but these three type of payments or modes of payments have different attributes. They do have some similar attributes as well. For example, amount, how much you are paying through cash or credit card, but there is some attribute, and even there are some relationships that could be different for each entity. For example, for credit card, you have to take bank information of your customer, right? But if you are taking payment via cash, you don't need bank information of the customer, okay? So to represent this sort of thing, we can use super type thing and then subtypes, and we also discussed different rules of super types, that all the relationships and all the attributes of super type would be automatically part of subtypes, okay? Similarly, like I discussed this thing that like relatives, your parents' relatives are automatically your relatives, okay? But for subtypes, their attributes are distinct. They couldn't be shared with other subtypes, okay? And similarly, their attributes, their relationships are also for only that particular subtype. So in this example, so we have one example, sorry, exam, and obviously we have three subtypes: midterm, final, quiz, right? So who will tell student entity has a relationship with which entities, or from this side? So we have one student entity, right? Would this relationship be with midterm, final, and quiz entities as well? Yes, because this relationship is with a supertype, right? So every relationship with a supertype would be automatically relationship with all subtypes, okay? And this supertype exam has attributes, 5 attributes. It means that they are common attributes and they are the attributes of this midterm, final, and quiz entities or sub entities as well, okay? But there are few attributes that are relevant with subtypes only, okay? For example, for midterm, grade for oral presentation, or for final exam, extra points for optional paper. So this attribute is only the attribute of final sub entity, not for midterm, not for quiz, right? And there is a one relationship bonus question, and this relationship is with quiz only, okay? So this relationship is with this subtype only, okay? So by this way you can represent your system in subtype or supertype way. Any question? And we discussed 2-3 important aspects regarding supertypes. One was that like exhaustiveness. All the options should be there in subtypes, right? Exhaustive supertype or subtypes. For example, if some customer is going to pay a bill, then there is at least one option, okay, so that he can pay via cash or via credit card, or third one could be check, right? But for future use you can add another sub entity, other, okay, might be blockchain or something, right? Bitcoins, okay? So it depends. So your system should be exhaustive. It should exhaust all the options, all the possible options, okay? And mutually exclusive means, who will tell mutually exclusive property for supertype, subtype thing? What is mutually exclusive? If you toss a coin, obviously head and tails are the two options, and they are mutually exclusive options. You cannot say after toss it's a head and tail, right? There is only one possibility, okay? So same is the case with this one. If there is one instance, that instance can only belong to one and only one subtype. This is mutually exclusive sort of thing, property of this thing, okay? And this mutually exclusive sort of thing we can represent with another thing known as args. So for example, data modeling helps designers clarify an exclusive or across relationships, and so I will go to the example, okay? So exclusive OR relationship is just like mutually exclusive relationship, so we can represent through arch. Okay. By this way. So for example, there is one entity training event, right? And it can only be conducted or hosted by either in-house trainer or by some training company, right? So one-to-one, like one person can arrange this thing, or by through some training company. Okay. So we can we represent these two in one super type subtype notation? If we can represent this thing via subtype supertype thing, then why we are using the arch, right? Can anyone tell why? So this diagram is saying that simply because of this representation, right, that each training event, right, must only be hosted by in-house trainer or by training company, cannot be both. Okay, so this is exclusive OR thing, or mutually exclusive sort of thing. And in subtype supertypes we were discussing this thing, that all the subtypes are mutually exclusive. So obviously if I can put this thing in one supertype notation, then I can simply link training event with that supertype. Would it be same, or could it be possible? That's why we are using this sort of notation. So why we are using arch in ERD? Who will tell? Just to show mutually exclusive relationship between two entities. Okay, two or more entities. Okay, so like this entity would have only one relationship with one of the entity. Okay, cannot make a relationship between two entities at a time. Okay. And in supertype subtype things we were discussing this thing, that for example, you know that is it possible that in your course one instance of exam is your final exam and as well as your quiz? Is it possible that I would say, okay, this is your final exam and quiz, or your assignment and final exam, one instance? Obviously no, right? I cannot say this thing that, okay, this assignment is your final exam as well. Obviously no, right? It could be either, it could be a final exam, it could be your assignment, it could be only a quiz, right? Not two types of thing, right? So which means that student cannot have relationship between exam sort of thing, which could be final exam or at a time, one instance. Okay, so this thing can be represented by through arch, right? And so representation is simple. For both relationships we will draw simple this line and then draw circles. It will represent that this entity training event has mutual exclusive relationship with these two entities. One instance could only be held or hosted by in-house trainer only. Okay, that cannot be hosted by training company. Okay, because of this thing. So sometimes we can use subtype supertypes, or we can use arch. Okay, for example, if we are going to display some ads on billboard, right, then obviously it will advertising space for some movies, some product advertisement, or some public announcement. It couldn't be combined. Okay, so for this diagram we are saying that this entity, if billboard number or size and location, would be mutually exclusive with only one type of advertisement, right? So we can represent, if the relationship can be with only one entity, then we can simply represent this thing. In subtypes, supertypes, we also discussed one thing, that it must be kind, they must be kind of one thing, right? Remember? For conditions of your subtypes and supertypes, there is a first condition that all the subtypes should be kind of. They must be belong to one category. Okay. For example, you cannot make a subtype of human and credit card is the second subtype, and let's suppose animals is a third subtype. Okay. All of these three should be kind of something. Then you can make it as a supertype or subtype representation. Okay. If you cannot make such thing, right, like this condition of same kind is not possible, then you can use arch. Okay. So this is the example from the previous week in which we discussed this thing, that this account could be from like checking account or saving accounts. They are the types of different accounts, right? Checking account is like current account. I don't know you have idea about banks or not, but in banks you have different types of accounts. Okay, so current account, saving account, long-term saving account, sort of thing. So all of these three accounts are some sort of kind of accounts, right? Or no? So if they are kind, then obviously there is no need to represent it through arch. Okay, we can represent via subtype, supertypes thing. The reason is that they must have many common attributes. Okay, that's why we can represent it as supertypes. But there are some cases in which two subtypes or sub-entities are not types of each other, but you want mutual exclusiveness thing, then you can use arch. Clear? Is it difficult? How many courses you are taking in this semester? 5, 6? Usually 6, okay. And if you, in terms of difficulty, what is the ranking of database technologies course? 1 is the most difficult course. 5, okay. Okay. But he could be an outlier, so I think it's not difficult course. Obviously, it's a little bit boring because you have to understand or at least remember. But I think theory part of DBMS is almost over by this week. But they are very important. If you want to visualize or make some diagrams, you have to remember different types of notation, right? So, but it's interesting if you can make some diagrams of different systems, different business information systems, different hotel management systems, then you will know they are very useful things, like how to map different things into entities, then finding out their attributes, and then finding out their relationships. Okay, all the applications, software, computer applications, or even your web applications are based on these things. Like behind the Facebook, behind WhatsApp, behind every website, there must be some database and obviously entities and this stuff, right? For example, in Facebook, person would be one entity, right? And it has some relationship, recursive relationship with each other because friend is also a person, right? And similarly, you are posting different text based messages, or you are sharing images, pictures, right, or videos. So these are all entities, and obviously when you are posted, who posted it, time, date, these are the attributes of this particular post, right? These are the attributes. Okay, so I will summarize this thing again. We started from super types thing. We discussed this thing in database modeling. Sometimes we have entities which are kind of some sort of thing. They are very similar entities, and we can represent these entities in super type, subtype sort of thing. Okay, because they are types of something, like optional, like current account or saving account is a type of an account. Okay, and they are sharing many common attributes, they are sharing many common relationships. So that's why we are putting these entities into subtypes and then supertypes thing. Okay, and then we discuss mutually exclusive thing, that relationship with this supertype or subtypes would be such that one instance could only be part of only one subtype. Obviously, when you open your account in any bank, it could only be current account or saving account. Is it possible to open an account and you can tell this is saving account as well as a current account? No, right? It means that you only have to select one option, one type, right? So if this is the case, then we can simply represent these entities with supertypes and subtypes thing. But in some cases, there are some related entities, but they are not type of each other. Okay, they are not kind of something, some kind of some supertype. So if you need some sort of that sort of thing, that you want to represent mutually exclusive relationship, then you can use Arch, okay, to represent that thing. Then we have hierarchies. For example, in organizational chart, we have hierarchies. We have president and directors, managers, or HODs, dean, right? Different type of hierarchy for employees. It could be represented as this way, but the easiest way to represent this organizational chart is using recursive relationship, because we know that president, director, manager, and even entry level employee is a employee, right? And we can simply make different type of recursive relationship with the same entity. So because of this recursive relationship thing, you can see instead of 4 entities, we can represent this thing with one entity and one recursive relationship. Okay, so both are fine, but obviously I would prefer recursive relationship to represent, so that my entity ERD diagram would be more compact and easy to manage, right? So far what we have discussed is that, like, we have employees and we have departments, or we have products and we have types. But you know, in most of the cases in databases, you have to store historical values, previous values. For example, if I have let's suppose for a company, this laptop would have one price in the start, right? And after 1 month or 5-6 months, price could be dropped or could be increased because of some tax or because of some other thing, right? So do we need to store previous value of previous price of this laptop, which was in early start of 2020, let's say? Do we need that to store that value? Who will tell? I have one product, and the price of product is varying or changing after 3 months or 6 months, or let's suppose there is sale season or something, price is dropped to 50%, right? Should I save the actual price of that product? Who will tell? No? Yes? No? Okay. Why no?
It's changing.
Yeah.
It's changed.
But let's suppose one customer comes after 6 months and he purchased that product at 1,000 euro, but on your system the price is coming 500 euro. What you will do if we are not storing historical values? No? Yeah?
Should record all the data. Even if the price changes, you should have like the previous price in our system.
Yeah.
You have to check all the time.
Yeah, obviously, because you know that after 1 year, if you have to do audit of your company and there is sale purchase thing, then obviously you cannot audit things on the basis of current prices. For example, petrol prices, someone says I purchased this petrol 500 liter, for example, for company for this price, but the current price would be different, and then obviously you cannot match this thing with the payments he done 6 months ago, right? So it means that you do need historical data. For example, if you are hiring someone, he or she would have some starting salary, but after many years the salary would definitely be changed, right? But you need some track, you need some historical data so that you can see, or he or she can see that like in 2020 salary, 2021 salary, right? So this sort of thing is modeling historical data. And for example, obviously at age 5, height was different at age 10, right? And if parents write down this down, obviously they were trying to keep track of your historical data, okay? So most businesses need to track some historical data. And obviously I think in not most all businesses, obviously, okay, because they have to do audit, they have to make balance sheets and different things, and if the values are not correct or they don't have historical values, obviously it wouldn't be matching with the bank transactions, right? So this will help to find trends and patterns. And similarly, for example, rental history of a movie is useful to a video store. It tells managers which movies are popular and which should be moved to the back shelf. So modeling data over time, when is it necessary to model data over time, and how much? Obviously for last 5 years or for last 10 years, it depends on client need. So, but if for audit purposes, obviously it would be required, then you have to save your all historical changes till that audit requirement, 5 years or 10 years. For example, in banks, you know that like if they have some if they have some wrong transaction, they have data for last 5 years or 10 years maximum, right? So, but they cannot tell you like what is the transaction, what was the exact transaction in 1990 or something, okay? They do have record in like in hard form as well, but by law they are not bound to tell you that your transactions are before 10 years or something. So can attribute values change over time? So if there is one attribute which is changing over the time, you have to keep track all the changes, right? For example, if there is some petrol pump and you know that prices keep changing up and down. So with time, they have to store what was the price of this thing in particular month or from this date to this date, okay? Sometimes can relationships change over time? So do need to produce reports on older data. So these are the different questions that you have to ask, that why do you need historical data and how much, how many years, for how many years, okay? Similarly for employee, his salary increase or decrease record, right? So do you need to keep previous versions of the data? If so, for how long, okay? So that's why we need historical data. We have to store it. So we can take a break, and in a break of 10 minutes, you can think how to store historical data.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hi.
I got to sign up to a group. Is there a way you could just randomly assign me to?
Okay. And can you email me your roll number or?
Do you want me to email you after the lecture? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I will add you in one group. So just drop a small email, right?
Yeah.
So that I have your full name and roll number, and because I have to add on Blackboard as well
Okay.
for group.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can add you. So
Yeah, it's
there
perfect.
is one group which, you know,
Yeah, I'll
so
email
there is
you.
a space, so
Yeah.
one space available.
Yeah, I'll email you so after the lecture. And
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
We just have a few questions on for the project. We're just wondering kind of what is the task that's been asked to be done before next Monday,
Yeah, you only have to mention or identify a system
right?
that you would be going to design. It could be any web app, it could be any mobile app, it could be. But the main focus is on the database part of that app.
Right.
Okay. So,
So-
for example, let's suppose you you say I would create a similar web app just like Facebook, for example.
Okay.
Okay. So for Facebook, it means that you would have to, in the later on, you have to identify entities, their attributes, their relationships, their diagrams, right? So in the proposal, you only have to mention, it could be some other thing, but yeah.
So we're not. The project isn't going to be based on an existing website or something like that. We're going to make one ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay.
For example, if you have some knowledge of some business and you want some sort of management information system for that business,
Okay.
that's fine. You
Right.
can propose, for example, just like Uber, you can say you would be designing something for trucks or for some heavy machinery to share with each other or something,
Okay.
and system so that people can get and enroll their
But just for the first bit that's due next week is just pretty much a proposal, like of what, like an explanation nearly of what we will be doing.
yeah, only proposal, only
Do we-
one pager or two pager.
Do we have to make the relational?
No. For proposal, no. In the next phase, it would be after
Would be included in
you,
that
you would be
after,
after 2 weeks or something, 3
Okay.
weeks. Then you have to provide ERD sort of thing.
Okay.
But for this thing only, you have to sit with your group and decide what do you want to make.
And then we'll go to 2 pages of what
Yeah,
we'll be doing.
it depends. If you have some, if you can put some screenshots or if you can draw something, it's only up to you. But just
Okay.
a proposal,
So the small, like,
just a concrete proposal that you want to make this sort of web application which would have this functionality.
Okay.
And obviously, in this project, in this course, we are not talking about graphical user interface thing.
Mhm.
So there is no marks or as such.
I know,
Expect-
just to give an idea even.
Yeah,
rough
but yeah.
sketch, anyway.
So it depends. You can even by hand you can draw
Okay.
that this website sketches,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Or if you can draw it through some software, that's fine.
Okay.
So, but the main focus is that the database behind that web application.
Mhm.
So you have to identify it. It could be from any existing system.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Okay.
As long as and obviously I wouldn't expect you to make exact ERD of Amazon or Facebook. It's a just demo, right? And but obviously it wouldn't be ERD of just only one employee and department and you say that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So you have to right. So yeah, proposal 2-3 page. What do you want to do?
In the next milestone, will we have to use like the Oracle data developer?
Data modeler.
Yeah.
It's not compulsory, but you know it's very easy to
Yeah.
make diagrams.
Yeah.
It's very good because when you would be part of some industry, obviously they wouldn't like you to draw something on your
yeah,
pages.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so you can draw your ERDs for assignment and for project assignments. You can draw on that tool, and it's very easy to use.
Okay.
You can even there are some other tools as well, and if you want to use that tool, I'm okay with it. I'm not focusing on any one tool. I'm not
Alright.
getting paid from Oracle or something.
So
So-
for
so-
next week, we have to justify our choice
Yeah,
and maybe put some screenshot or
yeah.
to justify why it's a clever choice or
Yeah, why you are selecting this thing
okay.
and how it would be more give more benefits if to the particular industry or something if you are going to make that application.
Okay.
It could be I think on the write-up I didn't mention it, but it could be only mobile app as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even WhatsApp is a mobile app, but behind WhatsApp,
Yeah.
huge database sort of thing. Okay.
Okay.
So when I'm saying app, it's web app or mobile app. It doesn't, or even desktop app, no problem. Okay. So it, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm here. Because someone served me, so I had to leave early anyway, then I spoke for a bit, so yeah.
Okay, this is a code 6175. You can check in your attendance. Okay, so we can discuss about project. So first deadline is to submit your project proposal. It's not about making ERD of your project or something. You only have to tell like what would be the application, and that application could be web application or mobile application as well, any application or desktop application. So you have to mention or you have to tell what would be the features of that application in 2-3 page only maximum. You can draw it some sketches, or you can simply take screenshot of already built application, right? So it's up to you. So we are talking about application, but in this course our concern is only about the backend database only. Okay. So that application could be, for example, in terms of hotel management. Let's suppose for hotel management we can say that it's a room booking application, right? Or it could be some sort of players database application regarding players, or it could be application very similar to Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp, or it could be some other like Uber or some sort of thing. Okay. So obviously my expectation wouldn't be such that I would expect to make an application or design an application equivalent to Facebook in this course, but it should be some significant, right? It should have some 5, 6, 7 entities, or it should have relationship, at least 2-3 relationships of many to many relationships sort of thing. Okay. So in the project we would be only focusing on the database part of it. For graphical user interface, obviously we are not going to implement that thing, but you can represent your graphical user interface through some design or some picture, or you can simply draw on page and say, okay, this would be the home page, this would be the next page when user would click on it. Okay, it depends on you, but the main focus would be on database part of that application. So if you have any question regarding your project groups, or you can ask. It could be any real life application, might be some business around you or something, right? That you want to design some application for them. Okay. So this is for attendance 6175 code, so students can check in with this code 6175. So in the previous lecture we were talking about the data, and especially historical data. Okay. For example, when one product was launched, its price would be definitely different after 2 years or 3 years, right? And even during that 2-3 years, there could be some sort of some sale season where that price would be 50% reduced or 25% reduced. So changing of this price should be maintained at the database end. Otherwise your accounts and your payments with customers cannot be matched if you only have saving only one value. Okay, because one customer would be purchasing that product at 100 euro and another customer might be purchasing that same product at 200 euro, right? And then obviously you should have some historical data so that you can map that change with respect to time, and then you can obviously audit in terms of audit or in terms of financial statements matching. Then that would be fine, that why this customer paid 100 euro instead of 200, because you have recorded this thing that during 1st of March to 31st of March, for example, the price was reduced to 75% or reduced to 70%, right? So this is historical data that would be changing over time. So you have to store that data. So obviously you have to ask your client about it, and like, can attribute values change over time or relationship? Similarly for reports. So for example, when some employee is hired, his or her salary would be added, right? But over the time, like after 1 year, he or she definitely would get some increment in his or her salary, right? So that sort of changing must be stored in the database. So if I store, for example, I have one employee entity, and let's suppose I say one attribute is first salary, second attribute is second salary, third salary, fourth salary. So there is no limitation of that, because one employee could have 25 years of salaries, right? And if for new employee, you are just wasting 24 years, previous 24 years, because he was not employed in 2000, 2001, in 2002, if you record this way, right? So it means that this historical data could not be placed in the same entity of that product or that employee. It means that we have to make another entity, and then we can relate with these two entities. So similarly, for example, in this organization, for example, all employees are paid weekly. So if salary is not changing, then this entity is working fine, right? Because we are saying that weekly salary amount, let's suppose 300 euro, we are fixing it, and salary start date obviously when that particular employee was employed or hired, right? Then there is no problem with this entity if there is no change in the salary, right? Or no? Just like first name or last name of that particular employee, obviously it's not changing, then no problem, right? But the problem is that when this salary would be changed, right? So for this purpose, we have to make another entity. It could be salary history, okay? So now we have employee ID, first name, last name, and then we have one barred entity or identifying entity salary history. Here we have salary start date, salary end date is optional, and weekly salary amount. Now I can store different salaries of one employee in this table. Okay. What does this mean? This bar means, who will tell? So when we were converting our many-to-many relationships, we discussed this thing that we will make another entity named as identifying entity, and this bar means the primary key of this entity would be part of this entity as well, okay? So instead of, because you can see here we are not writing employee ID, right? But this bar means that primary key of this entity would be another attribute of this entity as well, okay? So this bar is just representing this thing. So by this way we can simply store different salaries of an employee. On your notebook, can you write a table of one employee with this information? Just write one row, one tuple. You know what is a tuple, right? One row, one instance. So employee, make one table, let's say employee with some ID, 1, 2, 3, first name, last name. Just write it, any random name with random ID. Now you have to store his salary, his or her salary, right? So for example, on the next page, you can write employee ID, same employee ID, any value, then salary start date. Let's suppose put today's date as a salary start date, attribute value, and obviously there is no salary end date for this case. then you can add, let's suppose, €250 weekly salary amount. So just imagine after 6 months there is some sort of increment for this particular employee that you have wrote on your notebook. How you will add entry? Who will tell? In the second table. Obviously in the first table for employee you are not changing any value, right? And in the second table you will be adding new entry for new salary with the same ID of employee. Now you can write in the second table, second row, same employee ID. Let's suppose salary start date is 1st of January 2022. And will you update previous entry as well? You can update, right? There is one attribute, salary end date. It means that previous salary was valid till 31st of December 2021. Now you can update previous entry. Okay? So this is updation. You are doing two entries, like you are doing two things. You are updating previous entry, previous tuple, right? And updating one field only. In salary end date, you are adding 31st of December 2021. It means that that salary is valid from today to 31st of December 2021. And the next entry would be starting from 1st of January 2022. And obviously you would empty that salary end date is empty. And weekly salary amount is now, let's say, €300. So by this way, now you can you track or no? There is still some issue about identifying the exact salary of a particular person at particular time or particular date. Now you can track easily, right? Because you have two entries now. One entry for today till 31st of December 2021 with the amount and with employee ID, right? Employee ID is important because otherwise you cannot identify that tuple. You cannot link that thing with the employee, obviously, right? You need it. And then you are putting second entry for new increment, and similarly you can add all the increments of that particular employee. And might be there are some employees like their salaries are fixed, they are not changing. Might be they are changing after 1 year or 2 years. So they would only have one entry there. Okay. So for example, 2 employees were hired today. So you would add 2 entries in employee data, just like you added one entry in the employee data. And then 2 entries would be in the salary history for today. But after 6 months, the salary of one employee increased. Then it means that there would be another entry, third entry for that particular employee. Okay. So by this way, you can simply save historical data. Similarly, for this product, if this product price, for example, when this product was launched, the price was €1,000, then you can simply say that, okay, this product ID this price from starting date and the ending date of this price was €1,000. But during sale might be 25% discount. So there would be one starting date of sale, let's suppose 1st of October to 10th of October. Another entry, second entry for this product, you would be saying that this product price from 1st of October to 10th of October is €900, let's suppose. And even if after 10th of October it's back to €1,000, you can add third entry in database, product ID, start date, end date, and again price would be €1,000. Now you have full record of price changes. You can simply query your data that on particular date what was the price of this product, right? Any question about about storing historical values? You have to keep record of it. So for this purpose, you have to create another entity. Okay. So once you have another entity, it means another table. You are going to make another table. Or in Excel file, I can map that table as one sheet. You can say that. Okay. So you are creating another sheet for keeping record of historical values. Okay. So we have discussed about this thing, unique identifiers. The unique identifier is obviously very important in relational databases. It is the value or combination of values. So one attribute could be unique identifier, or combination of attributes could make one unique identifier for particular entity. So obviously, so that we can identify or record one instance. So simple UIDs versus composite UIDs. A UID that is a single attribute is a simple UID, but sometimes a single attribute is not enough to uniquely identify an instance of an entity. Okay. So if the UID is a combination of attributes, it is called a composite UID. Okay. So for example, in this case, concert ticket. For concert ticket, we have one UID named as ticket number and name, right? But we can also make this sort of thing, another UID, that date of performance and seat number. But now we have to combine these two attributes. Then it will make one unique identifier for one particular ticket. Okay. So it depends. We can either add ticket number as a primary UID or simple UID, or we can simply add two or more attributes to make one UID. It will be known as composite UIDs. Sometimes we do need artificial UIDs. In some books, they are also known as surrogate key. So artificial UIDs are those that don't occur in the natural world, but are created for purposes of identification in a system. Okay. For example, your roll number has no tangible existence in terms of students, right? They were only created for the purpose of identification, right? So this sort of attributes or UIDs are known as artificial UIDs. People are not born with numbers. Our PPS number is no link with, right? So, but you have to assign some unique numbers to identify people. It could be student roll number or customer ID, right? So, for example, for customer, first name, last name, address, and telephone numbers, and you can create an artificial UID by adding one attribute as ID. Okay. Similarly, for shoe, you can simply add one shoe ID. So obviously we cannot make first name and last name as a UID combination. There is a chance of two students have same family name or surname, right? So even in the university we would have many students which have first name and surname same. Okay. So that's why we are creating an artificial UID as student ID. So sometimes two or more possible UIDs exist. Can you tell, is it possible? So for example, in your database, in student database, if university is storing your PPS number, for example, it means that that PPS number is also unique. It can be used as a unique identifier for you to identify, right? But due to different reasons, obviously that PPS number is more for social welfare department or someone else, they would use that PPS number as a UID for their database, but for students, they require some sort of registration number. Okay, so it means that we have multiple or possible 2 or more UIDs can exist in one entity. Okay, so but we can store that entity where we can store that candidate UIDs but we have to represent by this way. Okay, so if they are more than one, then obviously we can number them. So here we have different UIDs, but they are secondary UIDs. Primary UID is student ID in this table represented by hash. If we put this batch number, or you can say PPS number, let's suppose, forget about batch number. For example, it's some sort of national identity or passport number, right? So it could be #1. Then we have 2 other things if we want to. So in databases, the main issue of the main functionality of DBMS is to avoid redundancy. Okay, can anyone tell what are the disadvantages of having redundancy in data? Redundancy in data means I am storing same data again and again, or writing or adding same data again and again. What are the issues in that thing? Can anyone tell? Space, good. Definitely this data would be storing on the hard disk, and I told you that if in Facebook data design, if they have only one attribute which is redundant, it would cost definitely millions of dollars to Facebook, because you have to that redundant space, even if it's taking 1 MB for one user, you can multiply 1 MB with 2 billion users, and the cost of 1 MB in hard disk, you can simply calculate the overhead cost of this redundant attribute. And obviously this redundant attribute has no use, right? For example, if I am storing your first name and your last name, then obviously there is no need to store full name as well. Okay, or if I am taking your identity registry, if I am noting, let's suppose I am taking attendance, and if I am taking your roll number or your registration number, and then I am also asking for your name, then obviously there is no purpose of asking your name again if you are providing your registration number, right? So in DBMS, we don't want this sort of redundancy. Because of redundancy, other than space, no doubt space is a big issue, your cost would be increased, access time would also be increased, right? Because on the hard disk, when this hard disk header has to get 10 attributes instead of 10, if they have to get 11 attributes, they will take more time, right? So time is increased, cost is increased, space is increased, and other than this thing, chances of error is also increased. For example, if I am taking your name again and again, there is a chance of misspelling. Then I would be confused that this name contains A or E, because in 5 entries I have written with E, and in some entries it was written with A, right? So updation is another issue. Updation would be difficult, because instead of updating your name one time in your database, I have to update might be in 10 different places, so more error chances. So this sort of thing can be resolved by normalization process. It's very easy, and in books there are so many normalization forms: first normal form, second normal form. Basically these are the rules, different rules, but these bookish normalization process was written when like 20, 30 or 40 years ago. At that time, the speed and space problem was obviously huge as compared to today. So, but in today applications, like especially your web applications, people do denormalize data. They do different sort of redundancy as well, because sometimes redundancy provides you fast access as well in terms of time. For example, when I told you to write employee information on your first page and employee salary on your second page, if you have to get data, it means that you have to traverse one page and second page, obviously, right? You have to join that data. What if that information of salary change was in the same page, on one page? Then it means that access time for this sort of problem could be fast as compared to getting data from two pages simultaneously, right? So in web pages, usually we do require fast response for the customer. So that's why this normalization process, usually people go for third normal form only. First normal form, second normal form, third normal form, we will discuss, very easy. They are very easy to implement. They are the three rules, but there are four normal form and fifth normal form, but no one is applying nowadays this sort of normalization, okay? So think about storing your friends' phone numbers in three different places: your address book, your cell phone, and a sheet of paper that you have taped to your refrigerator. So you are storing your friend's phone number in three different places, okay? Obviously, it's a lot of work if a friend changes his or her phone number. You have to update everywhere, right? Okay. So obviously it will take time, and if there is some like at some place you haven't changed that data, that phone number, then obviously if you are getting phone number from that place or someone else is getting friend phone number from that place, obviously it would be a wrong number, right? Or different phone number. So normalization is about this thing that we should reduce redundancy so that when we have to update our data, we have less places to update that data, okay? So we discussed this thing that redundancy like this causes unnecessary problems in a database. So normalization is a process that is used to eliminate these kinds of problems. One of your goals as a database designer is to store information in one place and in the best possible place, okay? If you follow the rules of normalization, you will achieve this goal. So first normal form is very simple, that this is a rule basically. First rule is it requires that no multi-valued attributes exist. We talked about this thing, that one attribute should always store only one value, not multiple values, okay? So if in your design, if you are designing attributes in such a way that they would be storing only one attribute, one value, then this database is in first normal form, means they are fulfilling the requirement of first normal form, okay? So single valued attributes is a requirement to make your database in first normal form. So to check for first normal form, validate that each attribute has a single value for each instance of the entity. For example, here we have school building, and school building would have some code, name and address, and then we are mentioning classrooms. Just like this whole building, definitely it would contain multiple classrooms, right? So if we make such design that we have to store all the names of the attributes, all the names of the auditoriums or classrooms in one attribute, then this design or this database is not in first normal form. You have to change this thing, okay? So since many classrooms exist in a school building, classroom is multi-valued and violates 1NF, first normal form. So for this, you will create another entity as a classroom, and then you will link this entity with school building. Now this database is in first normal form. This database is not in first normal form because here you are storing multi-value in classroom attribute, okay? So here for school building, we are storing multiple classrooms separately. It could be 20, it could be 30. So that's why one-to-many relationship. Each school building may have one or many classrooms, okay? Or maybe the location of one or many. So this is one or many. So classroom is now its own entity. All attributes have only one value per instance. Both entities are in first normal form. So can you tell what is the violation of first normal form in this database or for this entity? Remember, first normal form rule is that every attribute must be single value attribute, no multiple values, okay? So here in subject, we are storing multiple values. So it means that this table or this entity is not in first normal form. We have to split it, and we have to make this subject as a different entity. Now we delete this thing, and then we are simply creating another entity with subject. Now we can link it. So this is first normal form. Similarly, for this entity of shopping mall, we have ID, name, address, and in each shopping mall we have different stores, multiple stores, right, of different brands. So store name and store floor is there, right? So how we will convert this table into entity into first normal form? Can anyone tell? So basically, for a shopping mall, we are trying to store name of the store, brand name, right? And on which floor it is, first floor, second floor, or third floor. So what we will do, we will remove these two attributes and we will make a new entity named as store, and then we will link this store entity with shopping mall. Now we can store, because this is many, so each shopping mall may house one or many stores, right? And obviously each store must be located in one and only one shopping mall, okay? That particular store, that, right? Same is the case with this thing. We have team ID, name, player, and this team belongs to some league, but this thing is not correct because team consists of many players. So for this player attribute, we cannot make such attribute which would be storing some multiple values, okay? So simply we will remove this player from here, and we will make another entity of player, and then we can link it with team just like this, okay? So we remove this player attribute, and then we make separate entity for player and linked it with team, and then obviously this team is linked with this league, okay, or club, it depends. So this is first normal form. Any question about first normal form? So technically in normalization process, in the next week we would be discussing second and third normal form. We are stopping here. So the simple trick is that we have to kick out that violating attribute and make another entity. Okay, so you can see here we have subject attribute which was causing problem for the condition of first normal form. So we just remove this attribute subject and we make it as a new entity for subject. Okay, and similarly here this store name and store floor were creating problem for database to be in first normal form. So we just create another entity store with name and floor attributes. Okay.